Hi everyone, welcome here to my channel. My name is Fabiana, and in this tutorial today we'll be making this kids hoodie with scarf joined together. It's a great tutorial to make for winter, and it's an easy tutorial as well. I'm going to be working both parts in panels and just seaming them together, and I'm going to be showing you how to do that. Please make sure you follow the table for the number of stitches and rows for each size because they change, and then you can see on this video the way I put it all together, okay? So let's get started with this, and I'm gonna show you what the materials needed and everything else. And before we start, make sure you leave me a review on Amazon or Etsy if you purchase this pattern there, and I would love to see a picture of your project as well. So for this scarf with a hood tutorial, we're going to need around 200 grams of yarn. I like to use a velvet yarn for the accent color of the little details that I'm going to be making crochet around it. A little bit of waste yarn, a tape measurement so you can measure on your child before you start, and a crochet hook. For this tutorial, you can be using your Sentro 40, your Addi 46 or your Sentro 48 or any other machine that you have that has 40 plus needles, okay? I'm going to start making the hood part of it, and it's a great idea to do that because then you can measure again and see if the width of the scarf is the right one just by making this smaller piece instead of all the other one. You can use this to measure on your child as well, just to make sure you're doing the right size, okay? For this pattern, I'm going to be considering a 14 centimeters or 5.5 inches deep pocket. So you're gonna measure that, and then you can measure as well your head from one side to the other to see the length that you need to make for the hood part of it. So that's all calculated for you guys. You can just follow this if you don't want to measure at all, okay? So I'm going to start this by making the hood. I like to position my machines, all my machines, on needle number 1. And to do that, I'm going to also be using the tube mold of my machine and not the panel mold, okay? Always the tube mold for all my patterns. This is so I can use needle number 1. And that makes it easier to know how many stitches you have on the panel mold as well. And for this machine specifically, you can use the row counter if you are working on the tube mold. If you change to panel, the machine won't go back to this needle, and that way you won't count the rows, okay? So let's cast on 29 stitches for the hood. 29 stitches. Place the yarn underneath this piece here and inside the yarn guide, and then make 3 to 4 rows with the waste yarn. Again, pull this on the first row and then make your way back. Pull the yarn with your finger like I'm doing here. I always pull on the beginning so I have neat edges on the panel mold. And then through the rest of the row, I just let the yarn slide through my fingers without making any pressure or tension. Okay, I have the exact amount for only 3 rows. So I'm going to put the machine back to needle number 1. And I'm going to start my hood by changing the color of the yarn now. Put your counter back to 0 if using a digital counter or something like that. There are a few digital counter options on my website, on my Amazon products that I like. And here I'm going to leave a little bit of tail on the beginning so I can use for seaming purposes later. Just drop the yarn in front of the first needle and start working your panel. Always making sure the first stitch when you start the row is right on the bottom of the needle when you pass the yarn through it. I'm gonna clamp my machine still, but that's just to show you guys how I work the panels. You should always clamp your machine to the tables in order to make the panel work better, okay? It will be much easier to go through the rows with the machine clamped to the table. So for this hood here, I'm going to be making 110 rows on the panel mode. So just go to 110 and then I'm going to show you how to cast off the stitches from the machine. And after you made all the rows you needed for this hood, just leave a long tail of yarn so you can seam with it if you need, and then remove the yarn and make a full row without the yarn to release all the stitches of the needles. Then with a tapestry needle and a contrasting color, which makes it easier to see when you binding off later or seaming or anything you're doing, just remove the stitches one by one. You can secure by using your finger on the next stitch. Remove one by one if this is your first time doing this, or you can remove many at a time. Okay, now that you have the hood made, you can see the width. If you prefer a little more or a little less, you can just follow the table that's in the pattern. And I'm going to be making a panel for the scarf part of it, okay? So this is how our hood will look like. If you like the length, just keep like this for your child, or if you want a little longer, just remake it all, okay? Now, I'm going to be making the scarf the exact same way that I did here, starting with the waste yarn rows, finishing with this. So I'll go ahead and do this panel, and then I'll come back with you just to seam it all together and to finish this beautiful scarf with a hood that we are making today. Now for this size here that I'm making now, which is a 4 to 5 years old, I was considering 120 centimeters of length for the whole scarf, plus 14 centimeters to flip over and make the pockets at the end. So what I ended up doing was 140 centimeters because I added only 10 for each pocket, only because scarves stretch, and so you normally want a little less rows than the gauge would tell you to do. So another way to measure if you have the length that you want as well is just to place the tape measurement on top of it and just measure this way. So I have here 56 inches or 143 centimeters, and I wanted 140, so this will all go to the pockets. Another way, if you think you made it too long, I'm gonna show you a way soon to remove a few rows at the end here, but you can also make the pockets a little longer if you think this is too long, okay? Because they're gonna be folded like that, you can just fold a little longer, and that way decrease on the length of the full scarf as well. And now I'm just gonna remove the same way I did before with the hood, and then I'm gonna show you how to put it all together. Now, after I finished both of the panels, what I did was I folded the bottom with the pocket length that I wanted, and like I'm going to leave this detail just like this is the wrong side, but I'm just gonna leave the pocket just like this so I could make in one entire panel. If you want the right side or the stockinette stitch side on the outside of the pocket, you have to make a different panel only for the pocket. So you'd have to make two panels here instead, and then graft with a seamless stitch on the bottom, and then join together on the sides exactly like I'm going to do now, okay? So this is the measurement that I have after folding the pockets, and I'm happy with this measurement here. But if you're not, what you can do, if you think it's too long, you can, and I already placed markers here where I want my pockets. What you can do is, let's say you want to open all the way to here or something. What you can do is just slide this another yarn just like you did here through every single stitch in the same row. Then pull the yarn. I'm not gonna put now. Pull the yarn all the way to the other side, and then you can open all these rows until you get to the size, the length that you wanted. This is a way to open the work. I'm not going to do that now because I'm happy with the size for me. So the next step, what I'm going to do before even making the pockets here, I'm going to grab the other part of it, which is the hood. And now I'm going to metri stitch on the back side of it. To metri stitch, what I like to do is firstly, I like to put it through here, and then put the needle through this first stitch right there. And then straight to the other side where I like to use these two stitches here. I'm going to be following on this stitch going up, okay? If you want to place a marker to know which stitch are you using, you can do that too. But I don't need to do that anymore. For me, I know which stitch I have to go next. So here it is. And then on the other side, I'm going to put through here and then here. Don't need to pull it too much. Don't make it too tight, otherwise the seaming won't stretch as much as the rest of the piece. And you can see the yarns coming out of here. This is the next stitch too. I'm going 2 rows at a time as well. And then after a while you can pull just to close it off like this. And then follow along this side here and just seam the whole way to the top. I'll come back with you after I did that. Now the next thing we're going to do is just seam the pockets with that same yarn tails we had that we left. Do that same thing, put inside the first loop there, put the yarn inside the first loop there, and then straight to the other side, just like this. Make sure they're both in that same place on both sides, and then metri stitch the pocket as well. And then after this, we're going to finish with a row with the other yarn, so this is not gonna show at the end as much. Now I'm going to fold here, seam here, and I'm going to seam here, and then seam all the sides before I put the hood on the top of it. So let's finish this, and then we're going to make the next step after. And then once you seamed both pockets, that's what we are going to have. What I did was I folded this in half just to place the hood right in the middle, so I know when I get here to this place I have to be right there as well for the seaming part of it. Now to seam this piece here, what I'm going to do is also place a marker on each side here, and then I'm going to place another marker here on both sides so I know how to go about the seaming. And then just put the yarn through. I like to also pull this yarn here so it's easier to remove. And then right on this side, I'm going from there to here, and on this side here I'm going to matrix stitch through. I think I'll have to go through one and then two, one and then two, only because I want this to do like this on the top, sort of like this. And then you can remove this here. And then on the other side, we are going to graft. I'm gonna put the needle through that same first stitch and then the second stitch this way. And then this time here I'm going to go only on one of them, just to make sure I'll get to the same spot at the same time on both sides. And then here again the same way, just like this. You just repeat this seaming all the way to the other side until you finish this part here. Make sure you hide, there will be these two stitches here. Make sure you seam them kind of together in a way that this one stays on the back, only because it's curling in anyway. So just try to hide this loop here and this loop here from the other side. And then you can remove as well the waste yarn. But this is how this seaming is gonna be the whole way. If you leave the waste yarn, it's always easier to see which loop you have to go through next. And as you can see here, it's very seamless, so it's a really nice finishing as well. I'm going to finish these guys and then we're going to be making the last step, which is gonna be a row with the velvet yarn all around the hoodie and everything, just to finish this off a little better as well. So this is what's gonna happen next. And then after you finish the seaming, this is how this is going to look like. I always like to remove the waste yarn. So to do that, just make sure you untie this little first knot here. And I like just to pull a little bit to see which part of the yarn I should grab, and then remove it all. And then just bind off and just make a knot here. And then just hide the yarn tail on the back. And then you can always steam this, so this gets a little more flat when you steam it. I always like to steam my pieces. And then now what I'm going to do is we'll have to bind off these stitches as well here. And so I'm going to do this with this velvet yarn. I'm going to start binding off this way, and then I'm going to go this way all around it. So I'm going to use a 4.5 millimeters hook to do that. And I like to always work on the right side of it. And then put the hook through two of the loops. Yarn over, pull through. If needed, you can make an extra row after this as well, so it looks neat and nice, the finishing. And make a little tie as well, so the pocket is tied when you finish. So this is the way I'm going to be finishing the pockets, and then I'll come back with you to go around the sides. And then once you finish there, along the side here, I want to cover all this thing here, so I'm going to go through this hole here, pull the yarn and make a single crochet, and then the next one, pull and make a single crochet. I think this is what is good about crochet, because you can just go each way you want and just finish things off a little more neat and nice, and hide imperfections as well. I think crochet is great for that. Just grabbing always, I like to grab 2 loops. And then along the side here, I'll be making 1 stitch and skipping 1 stitch and skipping 1. The same way I'm doing here now. Same stitch. I love this velvet finish, it looks so nice. And then when you get here, on the last stitch down on the side, what I'm going to do is, in this last stitch here, I'm just gonna start making double crochet. Just because I want something wider on the hood part of it. I want a wider edge. So I'm just making double crochets here instead. And again, skipping 1, making 1 stitch. Skip 1, make 1 stitch. This is in order to have the same length on both parts. So this is how it's going to look like. I'm going to keep making all the way until the other side and then finishing it off. And then I'll come back to show you guys how it looks like. And then after I finish this row, as you can see, it's still curling a little bit. So I decided to make an extra row all around it. And then what I'm doing is just a single crochet in each stitch, really. And around here as well, it's 1 stitch in the middle of every stitch here. And I'm going to go after around here as well. So this was our tutorial for today. That's how the finishing looks like. I forgot to hide the tail here. But this is how it looks like. I really like this finishing here and this different part of it. This way I made it, the pocket. I did think that the hoodie might be a little too long, so I'm going to correct this in the pattern. So when you're making this pattern here, make sure you follow the table number of stitches and rows for each age, because I'm going to change just a little bit because I think the hoodie is a little too long. Other than that, all the way of making it's really the same, so you can just, follow along and make the same way I did, but just change the number of rows and stitches for each size depending on the size you are making. You can also add a little, and I think that would look really nice if you add a little pom-pom here, or even the bear ears here as well, or just some little details to make it look more cute for kids. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, guys. Make sure you leave me a review on Etsy, and I would love to see the photos of what you made as well and the colors you chose. And if you purchased this book on Amazon, thank you so much, and please leave me a review there as well. I really appreciate that, and that always helps my business and helps me to make these tutorials for free for you guys as well. If you subscribe to my channel, you'll see there's a lot of garment tutorials for free here too. Thank you all so much for watching, and I see you on the very next tutorial. Bye!